Hey everyone, this is going to be probably more of an informal, I guess, just look through a few different items. I think every now and then I'd like to do this, like just go through the history of something and sort of react to it in real time. You probably saw the title. Batman is, he's been around for nearly almost 100 years, and I guess almost 90 years now, and he's had a lot of looks. And I thought it might be interesting to go through maybe the different looks that he's had, because some of them are insane, and some of them are pretty cool, I suppose, depending on your taste. So, putting on my fashion superhero costume designing hat, let's take a look at how these different artists and authors have sort of created the Batman and evolved him throughout the years. So, starting off, you'd think we'd start with the original first appearance, right? I mean, he didn't appear before 1939, but however, when Bob Kane was busy ripping off Bill Finger, creating Batman, Bob Kane, little known fact, Bob Kane sort of came up with the idea of Batman, but Bill Finger basically did everything else we know about Batman. So when Bob Kane came into the picture and he said, I've got this great idea for this guy, he's a vigilante, he dresses as a bat and he beats up criminals, this was the original concept for Batman, which is real weird to look at now. It's almost got like the Falcon from Marvel look to it, with like those big stiff sort of wings coming out the back. Full red outfit with just like the domino mask. It's almost like how Robin, if we got a picture of Robin 1 year later, I think it was, almost has sort of a similar vibe with like the all red. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but this just, I don't think has the same appeal as the classic sort of original Batman that we know and love and was initially sort of pitched by Bill Finger way back in the day. So, but he's still got the grappling hook. I imagine he still was gonna, glide around. He's got that yellow utility belt. It's weird seeing like a blonde sort of Batman, which I guess we might actually see a little bit later, if you know anything about sort of the Nightfall 90s era of Batman. But I think this is, I don't know if I'm ranking these, but if I were to rank this is probably bottom of the barrel. It's interesting to see the the evolution of where these ideas have gone to, but man, I think they really hit it out of the park probably with this next one. If we take a look here, this here is the first cover with a little bit of panels from that first Batman. It's a little different. It's almost got like Wolverine type ears. They sort of come up and out from the side, but I see people sort of make fun of this in a lot of ways. I know like in the Arkham Knight video game, you could get this suit and a lot of people trash on it, but I really respect, no one had seen anything really like this before, I don't think. Obviously Superman was just a couple years prior, and I think this really sets itself as the counterpoint to Superman. Obviously black, dark with the blue. I think it's so interesting they went with like purple gloves from the get-go. I kind of really dig it, and I wish they would somehow can you imagine if we all pulled up to the Batman 2, the Robert Pattinson one, and he's like, hey Alfred, I've got a new costume, and he just like pulls on some purple, almost like Willy Wonka gloves. That would be incredible. Obviously they wouldn't do that, but I think we've got another one here. That's a classic. I'm sure this has been replicated. Is there a car alarm going off? I hope y'all can't hear that. Man, I tell you, that went on for maybe like 20 more seconds. Anyways, I'm sure this panel has been replicated many of times. I love these criminals. The Bat hyphen man. We don't see hyphens much anymore. It seems. Oh my gosh, I'm talking about the hyphens. It's just very interesting. I feel like that was the thing back in the day. You throw man on anything. Hyphen man. I feel like Spider-Man's the only one that really has that hyphen still there. People don't even remember it much. But this is, anybody who knew who Batman was would look at this and be like, that's him. The purple gloves are weird, but he's got the logo, the yellow belt, the boots, the cape, the cowl, everything. It's pretty interesting. When we hop on sort of over to more of the 40s era, we enter what we now see as, I think, more in line with what we'd expect, though it definitely went a little more campy. I mean, most people know the Adam West Batman series. I think this is sort of getting towards that. You can see though Bob Kane's signature there. I mean, he was doing the art on this. Robin was introduced during this era, so it colored things up a little bit. We've got a little more detail on the bat logo. It's interesting they went with the blue belt with more yellow highlights. They just ditched the yellow. Gone are the purple gloves, unfortunately, but we've got that classic finned glove, which I think is just super, I mean, that's iconic Batman at this point. I mean, we're not talking about Robin's outfit, but his has basically been the same for a while, except they added pants later. We got another picture. Looks like they did the death of Robin probably 30 years before it actually happened, so that's interesting. We have even somehow Batman is crying a tear through his cowl, which, I mean, only Batman could. I think it's interesting we still have just the little ears. You'll see them just slowly get longer because things just got more and more extreme until it hit a breaking point. But yeah, I think the blue, because previously we saw more black with the blue inside of the cape, but now it's like all of it's like it's blue except for the shadows. So that becomes a real staple, and once again it just only gets more crazy. Moving into the 60s, I mean 60s and sort of coming into the 70s, we see like I said, a lot more camp, a lot more weird sort of zany stuff. We finally have that yellow outline around Batman's logo, which, I mean, that I think sometimes he said it's, oh, that's like the target, that's my most armored part of my suit, so that's why I basically paint a target on my chest. I doubt any author was actually thinking about that this early. There's not much difference between sort of the 40s and 50s and this 60s one, other than it's just sort of got bluer and they went back to the full yellow belt, it looks like. Additionally, we started seeing like some weird kind of campy stuff. Batman had colors for like, it seems like every night he would put on a different color. I think eventually he got like a full rainbow suit. Makes no sense, but okay. Additionally, we've got the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, which, I mean, canny fans will see that pop up later. I mean, I know it's been in a couple of the Arkham games. The idea with this is that Batman has a backup personality in his brain that sometimes kicks in, and maybe that was just explained later, but man, it kind of looks like garbage. Fun fact, we'll return to it. So, but then we're moving into the 70s, which is, I always think of like Neil Adams, it's just that very, very blue Batman suit. I mean, they really just went almost like a neon blue, like a sky blue cape, which is not exactly what you'd think when you're thinking of like Dark Avenger of the Night. Let me put on my sky blue shirt. And it's not even like he's going through the day, like he can camouflage in with the sky, because he's still wearing that gray sort of jumpsuit with the yellow and everything. But I don't mind this suit. I think 70s almost took the campiness of the 60s, but added a little more serious elements. I think of it more as like real, like it's still got that comic book silliness. After all, it is like a man dressing as a bat, but it's still got that colorful aspect you'd expect from a comic. With the stories were a little more grittier. I believe this was the era, yeah, where Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, I guess, however you say it. Curse you, Christopher Nolan, for making everyone think it was Ra's al Ghul, but he wanted Batman to be the heir to the cowl, and they had a big like sword fight in the desert, just shirtless. And I mean, I don't know. It's pretty strange that he kept the cowl on, but decided to fight him shirtless in the desert. So, but we know that Batman likes a good sword fight. So, moving on into the 80s, we've still, once again, the stories are sort of getting darker, but we still have that like real blue sort of tinge. Eventually that's going to change as we move a little bit further. What we do have is Frank Miller sort of coming into the scene. We have the Dark Knight Returns, where Batman is like a tank. He's like white as a fridge. I mean, Frank Miller really has some bizarre art choices, I think, but I mean, it's such an iconic comic, and I mean, I think Zack Snyder obviously took a ton of inspiration from it, especially with the sort of mechanized suit that he fights Superman with. I think it's such a cool design. The metal gauntlets and the gloves with the spikes. I mean, once again, the ears are so teeny. He almost looks like Catman in some ways, like gray Catman. But I love, what's crazy is they've just kept the blue for so long, but it's really toned it down in this one. I think I like the more of the grays with the accent of blue, I think would be pretty cool. So yeah, I just, also what an amazing idea to pit sort of Batman and Superman together. I know it's been done before, but never really been done in this way. And what would the suit look like that an old Bruce Wayne would need to put on to even fight a Superman? I mean, that's pretty cool. Frank Miller obviously also did Batman Year One, which I guess is sort of like, you saw Batman at the beginning, but here's maybe his first year where we didn't see the growing pains that he had to go through. And so there's a lot more just black and gray, which I think fans, or maybe just people think that fans really want to gravitate towards just straight black and gray Batman outfits. I mean, you can't deny it. If you're like a ninja or someone who's been trained in any sort of stealth and martial arts, you would want to be less bright colors so you can blend into the shadows as easily as possible. So that makes sense. We're starting to see that. But once again, sort of, I think the Year One and the Dark Knight Returns outfits were more of a, I mean, they were, at least Year One was like sort of the canon version of it, but it's still, it wasn't like the mainstream one that people were reading. And as we move into the 90s, we see that we've got Batman and Robin. This time we've got Tim Drake Robin. He's got the pants, way to go. But Batman here, it's almost like they took the 70s, but we've got extreme 90s art now. So it's like capes are flowing and pouches, and you see the ears are now like super long now, which I kind of like. Some people hate them, but I think there's got to be a healthy medium. But I don't mind a long, almost like the Arkham, the initial Arkham games had like a really long, pointy ear, which I think is pretty neat. So, also in the 90s, we saw Batman give up the cowl to John Paul Valley Batman, which is like weird. He didn't give it to like Dick Grayson. You think he'd be the obvious pick, but he gives it to some dude he just met. And initially he wears the Batman cowl and decides to make his own suit, which is maybe one of the most extra Batman suits. But I won't lie, I do think it's pretty awesome. Maybe that's just, I mean, I was born at the very tail end of the 90s, so I mean, that's my extreme bias coming in. But just once again, insanity, pouches, the big curved cape. I think we've got another one of him in flight. This was sort of the more internal comics. I mean, it's just kind of cool. I like the yellow metal and the blue metal. But once again, I don't know why they thought, oh, we better iterate on the spikes by making them a 90-degree thing. I don't know how effective that would be in fighting, but I think also he shot like batarangs out of his wrist. Like I said, 90s for comics was a weird time. Everything went more extreme. In fact, even after this, Jean Paul Valley went, this is the one that shoots the batarangs out. You can see the clips coming into his gauntlets. It just went so far. In fact, I actually think it was on purpose though. I think the authors were like, everything's going extreme these days. Let's go so extreme. The readers will be like, give us back regular Batman. And as we see with the popularity of like the first sort of 1989 Batman Returns, Michael Keaton Batman, they sort of pared everything right back to just an all black suit similar to the Keaton suit in the movies. And I think it's pretty cool. I think some people, I remember hearing that authors were kind of annoyed, like, or artists were annoyed that, oh, we get to draw Batman now. Oh no, I have to draw extreme 90s Jean Paul Valley Batman. And now I have to draw just all black, like leather, rubber Batman. But looking at this picture, I don't really mind it. I think it's kind of cool. Once again, it ties into that ninja aspect where you need to be a dark avenger of the night, hiding in the shadows, preying on the fearful. But once again, he's got his branding there on the chest. So I think it's pretty solid. Moving into the 2000s, I mean, this picture, Everybody's seen it. I think it's the most, like the one on the most posters. We've got Jim Lee, who's just incredible on the art. I think he's taken the classic look, the black, the blue, and just really made it shine. I mean, I'm a sucker for some Jim Lee Batman art, and I think this one is just super incredible. So, later we have the Batman R.I.P., where they brought back Zurin, our Batman, and it's revealed, I guess, that he builds his suit out of legitimate trash from a trash can. So that makes sense, I guess. What is interesting, after the Batman R.I.P. and the Batman dies, but he wasn't really dead, he was shot through time and all that stuff, we see Dick Grayson, the original Robin. He became Nightwing, and then he steps in to be Batman during that interlude. And now his suit is it's just Bruce's suit. I find it interesting that the belt buckle is a bat logo. I think that's really cool. They've taken, obviously the yellow's gone by this point, they're just doing a straight bat logo, but I would imagine, the artist here is Jock, and I think he's got an incredible dynamism and a fluidity to his art, which I think really lends itself to Dick Grayson, who's like this acrobat who can fly through the skies, and I imagine the suit is very fluid in that way. He's got the rope. Maybe I'm just really biased towards this art. I think it's a really great picture here, but eventually Batman came back and they rebooted everything, and we move on sort of into the 2010s with the New 52. Everything in the New 52, the 90s was like extreme was the tagline, but here we've got realistic. I don't know. I feel like people wanted to see what would be the most realistic looking superheroes we could do. So once again, we've got Jim Lee art here. I've noticed if you go through all that whole Justice League spread, they decided to just draw lines on everything. And I don't know if that's an artist sort of laziness thing, oh, we don't it'd be easier to show them up. See, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but it's so weird they decided to just add piping sort of to everything. The whole suit just comes off in segments. But I won't lie, when I first came across these New 52 comics, that was sort of when I got into comics. I thought this was the coolest thing. And I'm like, oh man, they took he's not wearing underwear on his pants. This ain't your grandma's Batman. This is the real Batman. And I won't lie, I like it still, but I do probably prefer maybe a more classic look. But for the time, I think, New 52 is kind of atrocious and in many people's respects, but it is a really interesting time to look back at for sure. We have a Greg Capullo, however you say it, version. His art is really great. And what I love about the Capullo Snyder run is the 0 year section of things. So they basically were like, let's write the New 52 origin, basically the first year of Batman. And I remember hearing Scott Snyder talk about, we didn't with Batman Year One by Frank Miller, it was very grounded and very gritty. And they wanted to keep that, but they wanted to make it very colorful. And so we have a return to the purple gloves. And like I said, I'm not really rating these, but I think this might be one of my faves of all time. They've got that, the belt's kind of very interesting. It's got only 2 yellow pouches, but the rest are gray. I do like the padding on the sides and on the knees. He's sort of got combat boots. It's very proto-Batman, but it's still very Batman. He's got the grappling hook. Sometimes he's got a crossbow or a bow and arrow, which I don't understand because those can still be lethal. However, I understand. I guess they can't be if you're using the precision of Batman, who I guess trained with Green Arrow. So maybe that makes sense. I don't know what I'm talking about, but for those who don't know, this was the Riddler flooded Gotham and turned all the power off, so everyone, it's like an apocalypse in Gotham, and Batman is got a dirt bike, and he's has to thwart the Riddler, real low-tech style. So just what a great costume, in my opinion. But then we move on to, the Rebirth Batman. Also, I guess designed by Greg Capullo, which I think almost takes what I really liked about the last one and sort of puts it together with the new 52 version. Once again, he's got the purple on the inside of the cape. I don't know why. I'm a big fan of like embracing that original sort of roots in some sort of form. Rather than going yellow belt and yellow logo, they've gone just like real small outlines, which I just think, I don't quite know. It looks cool, but I would probably prefer just the more standard looking utility belt. Once again, we're missing the black briefs on the outside, which once again, when I saw this, I was like, oh cool, good thing we're not going back to that dumb, campy Batman era. But I do like the armor on the gauntlets. I think we've got a Jim Lee picture here. A little more realistic looking, I suppose. I find it interesting. The gauntlets are almost very more tech oriented, almost sort of like the Arkham Knight gauntlets. But I mean, once again, I think you give I would like to see a collage of just Jim Lee versions of Batman. I mean, I'm sure it already exists, but it's pretty neat. I think around this era, they also showed off the Hellbat, which is like Batman's outfit if he needs to like punch Darkseid or something. It's a little extreme. It almost has like elements of the Jean-Paul Vallée Azrael Batman, but also it's got almost like Batman Beyond vibes. I always like a red. I don't see it much, but you know, like the Flashpoint Batman or the Batman Beyond, the red really looks super cool, I think. It's interesting he's got spikes on like the back of his triceps there. That's definitely a choice, but I guess he didn't wear this costume much because it like drained his metabolism, which makes zero sense, but I don't know. Also I think around death metal, I just throw this in here because I thought it was a really interesting take, and also it's just super metal, and I think that's cool. I think in this one, Batman has like a Black Lantern ring, and it's almost like they went extreme 90s, but extreme metal 90s. I don't even know if that's a thing, but he's got some sort of active camo on his coat. I like that he's got like the trench coat, which reminds me very much of like real 90s, almost X-Men, like Gambit had the collar and Hush had the collar and Grifter from Wildstorm had the collar. So it is almost a callback to the 90s in a way that I think pulls it off really cool. Yep, the chains, just, I don't know, death metal and metal are a real insane series, but I really enjoyed them, and I thought this was a pretty cool idea too. And then we sort of move on to what he's looking like now. I picked the Jorge Jimenez art because Jorge Jimenez is just an incredible artist. I think they've really pared it back to almost bare essentials. Once again, I'm thrown back to the Arkham Asylum. This looks very Arkham Asylum in that it's just gray, it's just black, and it's very simple, but I think it really allows the artist to really flex his or her abilities in drawing Batman. I think it's still got all the tech and everything, but it's the classic look you're looking for. He's got the black underwear back over the gray pants. He's got the boots. I think they've added like they've really tried to make it look more clothy, which I find interesting because throughout the whole like 2011, it was like, make it metal. It's like armor. He's got to be punching criminals. And they're like, well, we can suspend our disbelief a little bit and it's more like clothy. And I think that's kind of cool. Here we've got another one, just another incredible Jorge Jimenez one. Yeah, I just think they've taken sort of, you know, it sort of harkens back almost to the 50s, but instead of the blue cowl, it's just straight up, just that black and gray. And it's, once again, he's like a ninja. He could just be coming out of the shadows and just punching you. And it would be, I guess, probably terrifying if you're a criminal, or ridiculous, depending, because he's a grown man dressed as a bat. But I think I like where we're at. I mean, I think all the stories recently have been pretty hit or miss, but I mean, you get one of those books with the Jorge Jimenez art, or like a Dan Mora perhaps, or obviously a Jim Lee, and it's just gonna be phenomenal. I think they've really landed in a pretty good place with the suit. I'm interested to see where they go, but as you've probably seen throughout this video, every time they switch up the suit, they just pair it right back to basics. It always goes back to the status quo. I found that with Batman, Superman, Aquaman, The Flash. You know, it's interesting. Wonder Woman is sort of settled on her current look, and maybe that's a question for another video. I find that interesting. I like her current look. I sort of like stylistically where DC's at. I just think some of their writing can be pretty hit or miss, but I think, you know, looking back at this whole span of Batman, it's been pretty consistent. Obviously, we have the weird Azrael Batman and the future sort of like beating up Superman Batman, but looking at the very beginning and looking at this sort of recent one, besides the purple gloves, you know, we're almost in the same place. And I think that's a testament to, you know, I'll say Bill Finger's design, because Bob Kane's design was kind of garbage, but Bill Finger, he really hit it out of the park right sort of out of the gate, and they haven't really, like I said, I think it's a testament to it that every time they wander, they come right back. And I think that is really important for maintaining a consistent hero that multiple generations of readers and kids alike can, like, you know, a kid from the 50s is going to be like, look at a Batman like this and be like, obviously that's Batman. You could cover up the top with the logo and the ears and they'll be like, oh, I know that that's Batman. And kids today, same thing. I mean, the kids seem to be more, at least the kids I've run into, nephews and nieces and whatnot, they like Paw Patrol or PJ Masks or whatever. They don't really care about superheroes like I did growing up. But I think there's a generational a generational standing that Batman has had. Obviously, he's one of the most popular, and I think his costume is in no small part a contributor of that. And yeah, I just think pretty neat. Maybe I'm just having a hard time dismounting this video, so I don't know. Let's wrap it up. I think it's been an incredible time to be alive. I don't know what I'm saying. We're gonna edit this out. But yeah, thank you for going through this whole journey with me, viewing all the Batman costumes and hearing me ramble about them. I'd love to do more of this. Superman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, all of them. I find this very interesting. It's another facet of comics that I love to get into. So not just lore, not just industry stuff, but just these little stylistic choices where probably a lot more work goes into it than you'd think. So thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.